Hi, I'm Matt Steininger with the Longmont Observer. I'm joined today by Kelly Crowley from the Gray Haven Group, a philosophy group here in Longmont. Now, I did not know we had a philosophy group. What exactly is a philosophy group?
We're actually, and it's Cowling, by the way.
Cowling, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're actually more than a philosophy group. We're a nonprofit that teaches philosophy to children and teens and adults through books and popular culture. So we have five ongoing book discussion groups for kids and teens, and they use literature as a launching pad to talk about the big ideas of philosophy. And then we have our Philosophy in Public Spaces initiative, where we are striving to embed philosophy in public spaces. So we go out in the public to St. Vrain Cidery and to the Longmont Senior Center and have sometimes adult philosophy discussions and often intergenerational philosophy discussions. We're in the midst of our Summer of the Mind, where we're having some philosophy experiences.
Yeah, aren't you doing? You're doing a Harry Potter group at the St. Vrain Cidery, right?
Well, we just had the Great Snape debate, which was yeah, a philosophy discussion
Good or
inspired
bad?
by Severus Snape, good or bad. But then when you have a philosophy discussion, you always find out that things are more complicated than that. And we had so much fun that we're going to do it again. We're in the July is summer camp time for us, so we'll be starting again in August. And then we have four Harry Potter and philosophy groups through the High Plains Library District for kids ages 8 to 18.
Nice. Now, a lot of people are familiar with the term philosophy. They
Mm-hmm.
might have a vague idea of what it is. Can you give us an example or a definition of what philosophy is, what people would expect when they come to one of these groups?
Philosophy it literally means love of wisdom. Philo, love, Sophia, wisdom. And it's a way of life. It's a way of life that embraces questions and the kind of questions that don't have definitive answers, the kinds of questions that you can't Google. I was talking to third graders recently, and I was explaining what philosophy is and the kind of questions that you can't just look up. And I said something like, "Do you ever think what was there before there was the universe?" And one little girl said, "I ask myself that all the time." And then the kids just started raising their hands and asking these big questions, coming up with these big questions, and they could have done that for an hour or more. We believe that everyone is a natural philosopher, particularly children.
Yeah, when a lot of people think philosophy, they think like Plato and
Mm-hmm.
Socrates and some of the and they're like, "Oh, I'm not that smart." But really you just need to ask a question and
Mm-hmm.
then go down the rabbit hole of where that conversation goes, right?
Right, and a typical philosophy class is not doing philosophy. It's a history of ideas. And we don't teach a history of ideas. We're not reading Kant with 8-year-olds, but we teach people to think critically, creatively, and collaboratively by engaging and thinking with them. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, introducing philosophy through, nerd culture or
Mm-hmm.
popular like novels, like the Harry Potter group that's coming up,
Mm-hmm.
is really smart idea because it
Thank you.
it gives them access that they can understand. If someone is trying to read Plato, they're not going to quite understand it, especially if they've never really gotten into it. Now, your group started out as a Tolkien book club, right?
Mm-hmm. I presented a paper at a conference on Tolkien and the other Inklings, C.S. Lewis, Owen Barfield, and Charles Williams. And the people at the conference were so fun and fascinating that I thought, I'm going to start a Tolkien book group. So I did. And then in our discussions, I realized that I was using my philosophy for children training. And so 3 years later, we started our first young adult book discussion group, Gray Haven's YA Young Adult. It's for 6th through 12th graders, and they read science fiction and fantasy novels. We read Sherlock Holmes. We're doing a series of graphic novels, and they talk about philosophy in that way. And they do this every Saturday. And they also do a lot of community service. They're helping to run our Harry Potter summer camp that we have coming up. And we call it geek philosophy, but it's not, you don't have to be a geek. You don't have to identify as a geek. Everybody's passionate about something. So if we start with what people are already interested in, and then they find that they really are asking big questions, and they really are able to talk deeply about life and what it means to be human.
Well, and for people like me, because I'm full-fledged nerd, you know,
Good for you.
for me it is a a way of getting into philosophy, because I'm like, oh, I want to talk about that,
Yeah.
I mean, I do anyway on my YouTube channels. I talk about that stuff. But like, I loved your office, because you said it's a bit messy right now because you're preparing for the Harry Potter thing and all that stuff. But when I walked in, like, you pointed out your gillyweed.
Yeah.
You've got Doctor Who and Starry Night on your wall. Star Trek little posters, some Borg,
Yes.
Yoda's Ravenclaw. Like, I love all this. Great.
Yeah.
It kind of looks
Thank
like
you.
the background for my YouTube videos have like all kinds of nerd stuff back there too. So it's a great way of accessing it. Very smart, I think.
Thank
And
you.
I haven't seen that too often. Now, I have seen Tolkien philosophy groups. I've seen those before, but they are very highbrow. This seems very casual and fun and accessible for any age.
Philosophy for Children, or P4C, is an international movement that was started in the 70s by Matthew Lipman, and they're a philosophy for children organizations. It's taught in 60 countries. So it's a very common thing. And they use all kinds of texts. So you start with the text. So the text might be a work of art, or a graphic novel, or a paragraph from Harry Potter, or film clips, or a movie. We have a film and philosophy series.
That's what I would be doing.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm a movie reviewer.
Yeah,
I
of
would
course. Of course. And literary criticism or movie criticism, it really is intimately related to philosophy, because you're thinking about what's happening in the film and what it means, and you connect it to your life. And so we just follow the big questions that come up. And the discussions are really like concentric circles. So you start with one little inner circle, and it might be something like, on Doctor Who, the Doctor regenerates. So when the Doctor is about to die, instead he regenerates and becomes a whole new person. And now yay, I'm so excited. I'm so excited that the Doctor is a woman. But they become a whole new person that we're expected to believe is the same person. So we start with that fact, and then we move into, well, what makes us who we are? So how could he be the same yet different? Is it our memories? Is it something like a soul? And then we just get into these bigger and bigger circles where ultimately we're talking about the nature of human consciousness and how it relates to the rest of the universe. That's how it works.
I would be down for that.
It happens every time. Every time. So it's not something that we force. We don't actually teach. We facilitate. And it's beautiful to watch that. We're starting preschool philosophy in the fall, and any group of people you get together, they can do this.
Oh yeah. If anybody watches any of my collaborations for reviews, we end up going deep dive. I mean, you could almost say that was a philosophy conversation, just because we dive really deep on concepts.
Yeah.
I did find it humorous that your name is Greyhaven. Am I allowed to give away the?
Yeah. Oh,
or
yes.
is it a secret handshake that only the people in the?
Oh, no. We're called Greyhaven's Philosophy.
It's a elven port city in the Tolkien universe, and Arendor.
It's Eriador. Is that right? I might.
Eriador.
Yeah. Good. Okay,
Eriador.
I didn't lose my Tolkien nerd
It's the
cred.
I that throws me off.
Yeah. It is. So it's the port where the elves depart from Middle Earth to the Undying Lands. And we were called that because we started as a Tolkien book group. And Tolkien book groups are traditionally named after places in the books, but all the mountain names were taken already. So I chose
And
Grey.
you didn't want to be Mordor's group?
No.
No?
No, yeah, no, we decided no. I mean, like, orcs are welcome, Sith, anybody can do philosophy. But I chose Grey Havens because the idea is that you have one foot in this world, paying attention to your mundane experiences, having your day-to-day, living your day-to-day life, and one foot beyond it so that you can look at your life with philosophical distance, so that you can pay attention and think critically about what's going on. So I suppose we were always a philosophy group from the very beginning.
Well, what brought you together was Tolkien. And you're basically using the same thing now, just expanded, where you're bringing people together from Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever the source is doesn't matter as much as where the conversation goes.
But it's not all geeky. It's not all fandom culture.
Mm-hmm.
We have a pop culture and philosophy group at Longmont Senior Center. And last time we used a film clip from Oxford Murders. I like to use the West Wing a lot. I'm kind of a West Wing nerd. So science fiction and fantasy is particularly good as a prompt for a philosophy discussion because it tends to ask big questions. But we can use anything. We had an art-inspired philosophy series for a while at the Firehouse Art Center, where we have a lot of our groups and discussions. We have a contemplative reading group that applies ancient contemplative practices to contemporary poetry. So we do tend to be known as those Harry Potter people, those Tolkien people, those Doctor Who people, but really we're much more than that. It's about whatever inspires you, whatever you're interested in, and taking that and jumping off from it to think deeply.
Well, I say nerd or geek,
Mm-hmm.
but really I think everybody is a nerd or a geek. It's all about whatever they focus on.
Right.
If you love art and you love old art,
Mm-hmm.
then you're an art nerd.
Right.
If you love cars, you're a car nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me, nerd is everybody.
That's so true. At the beginning and end of all of our Grey Havens YA meetings, our kids shout this quote from Will Wheaton that being a nerd is not about what you love, it's about how you love it. I can't help saying it in the rhythm that we shout it out in. Right. And it's about that. So a lot of our kids initially came because we talked about fandoms, and they stay for the philosophy. And now we have kids who are coming for the philosophy. And it's just about being allowed to be enthusiastic, being allowed to be unironically passionate about something, whether it's knitting or Minecraft.
We got people jumping around upstairs.
Yeah, when they have kids and dogs upstairs, it's even noisier.
All right. Well, so how can people learn about getting into this Harry Potter group coming up? Like, when is it? What time? It's at the St. Vrain Cidery.
It's at the St. Vrain Cidery. We haven't actually scheduled it yet because the Great Snape Debate was just a one-off, but it was so much fun and everybody said they would love to do it at least once a month. But you can find any of our philosophy discussions, Summer of the Mind activities, which I'm really excited about, at our website, which is greyhavensgroup.org. We're on Facebook as Grey Havens Philosophy, and on Twitter as Grey Havens Philosophy, Instagram as GH Philosophy, and any of those places are good places to find out about our upcoming events.
Well, the website is right here now, but I will have links to all of that in the description below, so check out the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, check out the website for scheduling and stuff like that. I may have to drop by one of them if I can.
Oh, good.
If I can. I mean, I'm all over the place. So we'll see if I am free during that time period. But I am going to be keeping an eye out because it sounds right up my alley. So if you'd like to see me and Kelly and join in some philosophical conversation on whatever nerddom you're into, come on down and check out the website. This is Matt Steininger from the Longmont Observer. Thank you for watching.